everyone, welcome back to Premier Talk. Today I'm joined by two artists whose work has traveled across cities, communities, and audiences. Daniel Koch and Luke George, the creators of Bunny, coming to the Battersea Arts Centre 4th to 6th June. If you've ever wondered what it feels like to be inside a performance built on trust, tension, and shared attention, this is the conversation for you. We'll talk about how Bunny first came about, what actually happens between performers and audiences inside the space, and how Daniel and Luke keep a creative partnership alive between Singapore and Melbourne. We'll also touch on the support structures around this kind of niche experimental practice. And of course, we'll end with a little fun, the not so serious round, a spontaneous moment about their partnership. So let's get started. Hello, Daniel and Luke. Thank you for joining us today at Premier Talk, and a very, very warm welcome to London. And you're looking forward to the performance in June at Battersea Arts Centre. It's Bunny, and we'll talk a lot about it, your process, and the idea behind it as to how you came about with the show. So if you can tell us a little bit about how Bunny first came about and what was the moment or impulse that started it all. Over to you.
Yeah, I'm based in Melbourne, Nam, Australia, and Daniel, Singapore, and Singapore and Berlin. When we met, this is 12 years ago now. I was living in New York, in Brooklyn. Daniel was living in Brussels, and we were moving about a lot. And we'd never met before. We were introduced to each other by a curator and suggested that maybe there's an intersection between our work because at that time as solo artists, we were very individually quite interested in the audience. So what does it mean to watch and how do people gather and how do people of different perspectives and experiences share a space together and how they're watching work and what are they thinking about. And you could say to this day, we're actually still very much interested in this line of thought. And we shared a lot. We got to know each other's work. We performed our works alongside each other, and tried to find the connections, and if there were some. And we talked a lot about our personal lives, a lot about our sexuality around being gay men, about my work as a sex worker as well, parallel to being an artist. And Daniel was very interested in the figure of the pole dancer at the time and was a trained pole dancer. And so the work of a stripper, and really analyzing that from an artistic perspective, and what does an audience have to do with this? So somehow in that Venn diagram, we realized that we were both very interested in learning shibari, and neither of us had learnt it before. I think we'd experienced a little bit, but we hadn't learnt it. And learning it both for a personal reason, an artistic reason, and just for some fun. So we took an initial workshop, and in those very first few days, those first moments, we both were like, "Oh, there's something here." This intersects with our artistic interests very much. Yeah, and how we could further explore what does it mean to do, to receive, and to watch. Yeah.
Yeah, I remember at that time I was very much involved in the idea of artistic research and what it might mean to be an artistic researcher as well as a performer. So, and I remember being very insistent that we ask ourselves what it means to work together. Because if I were a pole dancer performs by themselves. They don't need another person with them. So what is it about this working relationship that is necessary? So that was actually, I remember a starting point for me. So Shibari made sense because, first of all, of its relationship with the erotic lives of people, but
Mm-hmm.
also it's almost like a practice that makes visible the connection between two people through a
Right.
visible material. So then, very quickly realizing that ropes is a fascinating material that corresponds with the language of how we talk about human relationships, you
Mm.
know, social connections, familial bonds, um, dramatic tension, giving somebody some slack, and so many ways to unravel human relationships, really. It's just slip more in. I can
It's
go on.
brilliant. Yeah.
It's
So
been
what
12
I
years.
understand is it's kind of chivalry that brought in the rope into the picture. Am I
Yeah,
right
yeah.
in understanding that?
Yeah, but also realizing very quickly that it wasn't just shibari, but that maybe there were other ways to play with ropes, including macrame. So I remember very quickly we were also learning some macrame and thinking about how to combine them together.
Mm.
We were thinking about how to um, work in a way that is as visual as it is tactile. Um,
Mm-hmm.
as much about looking at it is about performing.
Sure.
Um, so this that made that it then it made sense for us to investigate macrame along with shibari as well.
Mm.
And then added to that this kind of question about what it might mean to queer shibari because
Mm.
the way we encountered it in the beginning was that it was very much often about a, a bigger sized man tying a petite woman, right? And if we
Oh.
aren't of that stereotype, what can we bring into or out of this practice if we were to think about a queer way to learn and practice rope bondage? Yeah.
Mm. This it's so interesting. I mean, there are so many art forms, and if we can really think about packaging them and bringing them to an audience in a form that you have done through Bunny, I mean, that is where I think the interesting point lies because there will be participants, I mean, sorry, audience members who will be experiencing such a performance for the first time. So it's really interesting to see what they come back with after they have seen the show. It would be an interesting element to really interview some of the audience members to see what their take is after they have experienced it. But we'll come to that a bit later on. From what you said, Daniel, it's interesting to know how did you navigate the intersection between your research work, performance, and really interacting with all these other forms that you have just spoken about and also it's working between two continents like somebody is in Melbourne and you are in sometimes in Berlin, sometimes in Singapore. So there are I think there's a variety of elements that have come together to really bring this show together. So if you can just tell us about firstly how you navigate the intersection between your research work and your performance, and then we'll come to the next bit, which is how do you navigate working between continents.
Yeah. I think these are quite definitely questions that we think about very often. For me, I would say that the way artistic research and performance in a much more sensitive, personal way dovetail at the point of thinking about the social dimension of art. I was initially a visual artist, but I actually was very quickly more interested in the performing arts because, simply put, I feel like the performing arts are more about people and not
Mm,
about objects
yeah.
and what it might mean to deal with and design experiences that are about people coming together. That made the job of a choreographer very personally as well as intellectually very stimulating for me. Yeah, and I feel that now, given what's happening in the world, it feels like all the more it is imperative for the arts to focus on what it might mean to bring different people together, not just bringing people together in a kind of community sense,
Mm,
but in the sense of what happens when we really don't agree or we have very different expectations, very
mm,
different desires. how do we sit with each other in the same room, and we may or may not arrive at the same conclusion together, but it is the job of the arts to deal with this right now.
Absolutely. And I think that is where the concept of bringing the audience members as part of the choreography in your performance comes about. So who are the audiences in your performance? And if you just tell us, how do they become part of the choreography? Something that is not rehearsed, very spontaneous, and they
Mm,
just experience it at the moment. So if you just
mm.
tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, it's become even more important. Like what Daniel was just talking about, it's become even more important to us in recent years, particularly post-pandemic, I would say, um, that we we don't just assume who is going to be in the room.
Mm,
Um, that we approach it with a lot of intent and a lot of curiosity, and we want that invitation to um, feel like it's there for not just outgoing audiences, not only queer people, not only kink people, but quite a broad spectrum of people. And sometimes it's worked. Like sometimes we've performed the work in a context where the festival or the theatre or the programmer is able to reach a pretty interesting, diverse audience. Um, and so a lot of what we do in the work is to take our time to really notice who's in the room and
mm,
to observe people. And I personally, I love the act of observation. Like, how
mm,
can people spend time with each other and pick up on little things and notice things about each other? And, we make stories about who we think someone is, but until you actually encounter somebody,
mm,
until you actually approach them and look at each other and ask a question of each other, you don't know anything. And so, it's quite challenging, this work for us as artists, because we are essentially inviting strangers or people we haven't met yet, and haven't met each other yet, potentially, to uh, accept an invitation to step into this work in some way, and
mm,
to either to boil it down to either tie or untie us, or to be tied or untied by us or other audience members.
Mm.
And all witnessed, this negotiation is live and witnessed in the performance itself by the other audience members. So everybody's watching each other the whole time, and this is the
right.
work.
Mm.
There is
That
no
is the
plan.
world of bunny. If you take us to the space
Exactly. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
between the performers and the audiences, that is what actually goes on.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's really interesting. Yeah. Yeah.
And we try not to see ourselves in going back to the queering of this. We asked ourselves, what if it would be very easy for us to have made a performance where one of us is the bunny and one of us is the rigger? Just to fill you in, bunny is a potential nickname, one of many nicknames that can be given to the person who is tied up in rope
Mm.
bondage.
Oh.
And rigger, yeah, just to let you know, that's what we're talking about when we mean bunny.
Mm.
And it's one of many. Not everyone uses that. But we thought it was very cute, so we decided to use that word. And rigger is the rigger,
Mm.
is the person who does the tying.
Right.
Um, and so yeah, it would have been very easy for us to
So do you
if Daniel.
shift the roles, like one plays the bunny and one the rigger, and then you change switch?
I think you had to come to the show to find out that to
Yeah,
answer.
exactly. I don't want to spoil the surprise, but I'm really excited and I really want to know what goes on in that
Mm.
space. So when you
Yeah.
say, so it's a very spontaneous thing. You're tying each other, the audience members are also tying each other. So everybody gets a chance to do something.
No,
They're doing,
no.
no?
Not necessarily. Yeah, tying takes time,
Yes,
and it
absolutely.
takes concentration, and it takes um, a very considered dynamic between people that have
Mm,
decided, yes, I want
mm,
you to, I want to be tied by you, um,
Or no, I don't
or
want
no,
to
I don't
be.
want to be,
Yes, so
or
for someone to
or
understand
let's
that
see. Yeah,
impulse, wow, I
yeah,
Yeah,
mean, that is
yeah.
something I think that's very interesting. And sorry, I just have so many questions in mind.
that's all right.
This is
Yeah.
very new and really
Go for it.
interesting. So,
Yeah.
how many audience members can you handle at the same time? Like,
Mm,
for one
mm,
show,
Mm.
how many audience members could be present in the house?
Yeah, I mean, literally, it will be just several. But for us, we tend not to, we try not to see things like that because when in our synopsis for the show, we ask the question, what if everyone in the theater is a bunny?
Mm,
So we are basically trying to ask the question of what how do we think of everyone here being tied up together in some ways? How
mm,
what if all of us, ourselves included,
mm,
have had to play this role of being submissive, of surrendering ourselves in
mm,
order for the performance to go somewhere, in order for all of us to be able to get somewhere together by the end of it. So it is really a question of like, even if you're not literally physically being tied up, or
mm,
in some ways you're already bound to each other. And I find that psychological aspect so
mm,
much more interesting. So in the process of making this work, we've also found moments where it was like a steep learning curve,
mm,
like what
mm,
when one person ties another, it is a very intimate and private experience.
mm,
Why is a third person watching? Why is a room full of people watching this? So we are
mm,
very interested in these ideas of expectations or projection onto one another. In the case of our show Bunny, we also bear in mind that the group of people watching are also watching one another as they look across the room and they watch somebody being tied up or somebody smiling really excitedly, whereas someone might be more circumspect and skeptical. Like all of that landscape of differences
mm,
and how is part of the negotiation.
mm.
And that for us is very exciting for all of that to be made visible in the show.
absolutely. And I would also imagine that people who choose to come and watch the show or really participate as audience members in this, they would have read, the description of the show, and that is how they choose whether they want to come or not. But I wonder if there are people who want to really come, watch, and understand and really get rid of any inhibitions that they might have about acts of touch, boundaries, and things like that. So that is also an interesting aspect, that do audience members come in with inhibitions, and are they able to shed that before they leave? So I think, do you think about that sort of an angle as well sometimes?
I would say I think it's important to say that it this is it's not a workshop, and it's not everyone is going to get a turn, or can put up their
Yes.
hand and wait for their
Yeah.
turn, sort of thing. Some people will be tied if they want to be, and we know from experience that for some of those people, some really big things have happened
Mm,
um, in the performance and through the performance, and it's been quite moving to witness that, and for them
mm,
to feel so safe and that they can be vulnerable.
mm,
That vulnerability can be seen by this audience of people, and in that, what we've heard again and again is that maybe when people think about bondage, BDSM, kink, rope, these kinds of dynamics,
mm,
maybe other things in popular culture or something in their past experience or something that someone has told them, a certain kind of trigger of intensity or even violence,
mm,
comes to mind, and they feel it in their body, and hold it in their body. So what we've heard over and over again is people really notice uh, the level of communication and care and responsibility that we as artists are taking within this, but also then how that then moves into the audience as well too. And these are not necessarily things that you would initially think about when you think about bondage, I think, if you've never encountered it before. Yeah.
Absolutely.
But I think, nevertheless, your question is a good one,
Mm.
right? It's what you say, inhibition, and whether or not they shed those inhibitions by the end of it. Um, I do think that I like the idea that almost all performances are about how we acquiesce, um, in during the performance. When you watch something, whether it's a movie or a show, maybe for the first 10 minutes, you are quite open, and then at some point, maybe you're not so sure. At some point, maybe you start to think, oh, actually, I don't think that's very interesting, or this is very cool. Like at some point, you make a decision about how you feel about what it is you're
Exactly. It's a
experiencing.
matter of perceptions because different
Yeah,
people have different perspectives and ways
yeah.
of accepting or looking at things. I think that if you add that element to it, that makes it even more interesting as to how many different kinds of thoughts, perspectives, and elements you're playing with. It just
Mhm,
keeps adding layers to it. That's really
mhm.
interesting. And I think when you say, from your point of view as performers, I think you also have to come with a lot of intuitiveness, um, just to understand as to where exactly you're going, understanding your audience and that sort of stuff. I mean, am I right in saying that?
Yeah, and I really do reference to back to what is how I introduced us at the start.
Hmm.
I didn't make these connections and more until recently, but I really feel like my experience as a gay man and also as a sex worker, a touch-based sex worker, like and my queer history as well, and now my kink history. Informs this so much where, as a being trained as a performer and as a dancer, you're trained to be intuitive with the people that you're dancing with, but
Mm.
not necessarily with the person watching you. And so I think all of this has personally informed me about intuition and how people um, uh, move towards or away from each other and protect themselves or open up to each other and how to sort of observe somebody and read somebody and I have to remind myself to lean back into those things that I've
Those
learned. Yeah.
moments, of
Mm.
course. Yeah. Oh, that's really interesting. And also, I wanted to know, what about safety and vulnerability? Is there anything around that you have to navigate through this show while presenting?
Very much so. In fact, I think we realize very quickly while making the work that we are being scrutinized, how we handle questions about consent and safety.
Mm.
And that's why I mentioned acquiescence, right? If somebody is watching us and they are, I mean, and they are wondering, like, how do we approach someone? Did
Mm.
we really get permission? How are we touching people? After we've tied someone up, do we just leave them alone? What if they're not comfortable at some point and or they change their mind?
Yeah.
So I think that these are on the thoughts of in the thoughts of many people as they are watching, and and we do feel a strong sense of responsibility to at least demonstrate the awareness, the
Mm.
self-awareness of how we are navigating the generosity of people's trust. So and that has been the part that is like really the cherry on top of the cake. Like how do we bring this performance to that point
Mm.
where everyone is aware of this level of not just um care and safety as our responsibility, but as a collective one.
Mm.
So
Absolutely.
and how are people also attending to each other? Um, there is definitely that layer, and finally there is the layer of by witnessing and gazing,
Mm.
it is actually also allowing some people who are especially the ones tied up to have a public experience that is very uncommon for them. So I love the moment where, without giving more of the show away, I love moments where, you can see that some people are discovering something anew for themselves. And when the room steps into a moment of giving, like supporting and encouraging this person just by watching, it starts to become a very beautiful collective experience.
Absolutely. And if I were to ask you, this is a very niche, unique work. What is the support system like in, either of your countries in terms of presenting, the artist community, in terms of funding? How do you navigate? That's the difficult bit for us performers. So tell us something about that, please.
I
You're
think you
looking
have
at each other. That's the
yeah,
difficult one.
Yeah, I love how I think you are directing that at me. Coming from Singapore, yes. But I must say that unlike what most people think, I feel very well supported in Singapore.
Fantastic.
There is censorship. There are
Mm,
moments where, like, the way things work in Singapore is that it's about preventing controversy. It's about
mm,
avoiding getting into situations where some members of the public might be uncomfortable and then lodge a complaint. Why is this funded by the Arts Council?
mm,
Blah, 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 so on. But on the whole, because of a general like sense of trust I've developed with the Arts Council. To be fair, I feel like I am more often than not supported. So as we made the work to go to residencies or to get funding to travel,
mm,
we have been supported by both Singapore and Australia.
mm,
It's worth quickly pointing out also that we met at a time when there was a kind of like a bilateral MOU between our countries,
mm,
and it without us realizing it at that time, it actually made our artistic collaboration easy. So
mm.
when we were applying for grants to do things together, it was also what our arts councils were already looking for. And it just made our work between Singapore and Australia actually quite easy.
That's really good to know. The very fact that you are here presenting it and the fact that you've presented, across the globe shows the kind of support you've been receiving. So it's nice to know from you. And we are running slightly out of time. So I'm just going to quickly move on to the next segment, which is not so serious anymore. And we will call it the not so serious round, as in KNOT, not.
Okay.
So, very quick questions, some fun questions, no overthinking, and just spontaneous answers from the two of
Well,
you. So, the first one is you've been trying to tie each other up artistically for over a decade. What keeps the partnership untangled?
Keeps it untangled.
what's it give?
And I will say that actually maybe not living in the same country helps, right?
Distance.
The
Yeah.
distance, the giving,
The
having
space.
space and time apart, so that every time we meet together, I'm excited to see Luke
Mm.
again. There is no sense that I'm always just saying the same thing, doing the same thing to the
Yeah.
same person.
Yeah.
Uh, so it feels like this, interweaving of experiences allow us to keep growing and keep being curious about what else we can learn from ropes,
Mm,
because there's a lot more stuff
Mm.
for us to figure out. Yeah.
yeah. Okay, the next one, I'll shoot that to you. In the studio, who's more likely to say, I have a crazy idea? And who says, wait, let's think this through?
I love
Wow.
it.
Yeah. He has
Okay,
the
we want
crazy
quick
idea.
ones. Yeah, we
He has
want
the
quick
crazy
answers.
idea, and I say, wait, let's think this through. Yeah, for sure.
Okay, so Daniel
Yeah.
comes with the crazy ideas, and you're the one who's
Yes.
thinking.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good
Yeah.
one.
Great
Next
question.
one.
Great question.
Next question. Who's more likely to accidentally invent a new technique and who names it?
Oh.
It may not be a technique, it could be a move, a special knot, or in your
Oh.
context.
I don't have an answer for this one.
Me
Yeah.
neither.
Yeah.
We're not overthinking it. I would say both.
Both. Okay, we
Mhm.
can take
Mhm.
that. Both is fine.
Mhm.
And who is the bigger troublemaker in the rehearsals? And who ends up fixing the trouble? Someone is hiding.
What are you trying to do to us here? Ooh, and you do set off bombs quite a bit.
I think it's well, it depends. It depends. Like if there's also a lot of administrative work that we have to
Uh,
do, right? So I would say in general I'm like sidestepping now. I think that we tend to like by now after 12 years very quickly recognize, okay, this is more your department than
mm,
mine.
Okay.
So if it's about budgets and technical stuff, usually it's done by if it's done by Luke. If it's about planning, organizing things, and writing text and creating documents, it's usually done by me. And then in the rehearsal, there is it's actually more about like which part of
Yeah,
the
so it's
work.
nicely compartmentalized. Let's put it that way.
Yes,
It's
yes,
neat
yes,
compartments. That keeps
yes,
it going.
yes.
I think
Fabulous.
I think that
And
we
yeah.
anticipate each other. We know what to anticipate with each other now.
Mm.
And I can feel I'm like, oh, he's about to throw a curly one. I can feel it. He's gonna be like, no, we have to try this, you know. Yeah.
Well, those things have to happen on the floor. Otherwise, there's
Yeah.
no
Yes,
fun. Yeah,
Yeah.
yes, yes.
absolutely. And my very last question to you today is what do you expect or hope your audiences to take away with them? What lingers with them after this performance, after they've watched it?
Mm.
I hope that people can see that like the performing arts, the liveness of performing arts continues to be potentially, powerful.
Mm,
And it's in the UK, the tickets are surprisingly cheap. And that's not the case in, say, Singapore and Australia anymore.
right.
Um, and at a time where everyone's stuck to their phones, watching Netflix at home, it's hard to build a case for why we all go to the theater. So I
Mm,
would say that, I would say in this case, I hope Bunny builds the case for like why it's still interesting and necessary for people to gather in an art space.
absolutely. Well, thank you so much for your time today in the run up to Bunny on the 4th to the 6th at the Battersea Arts Centre. We are all looking forward to it. It's been brilliant catching up with you, knowing all about the world of Bunny. And there were so many interesting aspects that we've learned today about bringing so many different kind of interesting elements together for a presentation like this. Thank you so much. I could have chatted with you, gone on and on, had it not been for the time of keeping the episode short. Thank you so much, and we will see you soon at the
See you
Battersea
soon.
Arts Centre. Bye bye.
Bye.